Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Heroes. We are with our level 23 Brute, Liberty Lass, and we finished the story arc for the Wheel of Destruction in the last episode, and you're probably not going to see it because I had my microphone accidentally muted, even though I could have sworn I checked it like I do every time. And I was talking away, and there was no sound on the video. And I don't think there's any way for me to fix that now that the recording is stopped and, from yesterday, so unfortunately, I think, yeah, we're gonna have not seen that. It was a confusing story arc because it was going in a bunch of different directions, and in the end, it ends up in one of these outdoor missions that where you have to find glowies, and I flew right past one. I could see it on the video actually, missed it, and then since I thought I'd been in that area, I never went back there to find it, and I just could not find this, and I was circling around, circling around, circling around, getting annoyed. So I don't know how much fun it would have been to watch that anyway. So maybe it's for the best that I didn't have the microphone on. In any case, there's another story arc in the offing. For some reason, we've got Claire Childress's number. I don't know why, and we can retrieve stolen weapons from the Freakshow. And this is a story arc. There's been a great deal of chaos on the street. A good deal of it is started by a gang called the Freakshow. Can we retrieve their stolen weapons? Now, this is going to be an interesting and potentially very difficult one for us because we're on +1, and the freak shows are going to be tough at this level on +1. They regenerate. They like after you knock them out, they can. There's a chance that they can wake back up because they have these like adrenaline boosters that fire when they get knocked unconscious some of the time, and also they have dull pain. When you get them down to about 20% hit points, they'll heal back up to like 50-60%. And you can sometimes stop them from triggering it, but a lot of times they trigger that, and then you knock them down and they res, and they have about 50% hit points again, so it's almost like they have about 200% of their hit points. So this could be very difficult. +1s will be okay, the +2s are going to be really hard, and if we get a +2 boss, it might be impossible at this level. It's no problem in the 30s for a character to do +2 or even +3 freak show bosses, but at this level it could be very difficult. So we're going to be clicking on weapons. We have 6 weapons to find. And I guess we'll see how we do against the Freak Show right now. We have a couple of them here. Hi, guys. So one of the things I will be doing with guys like this, if I, once I finally get taunt, is probably taunting them to try and get them to close with me, because again, we have this power rise to the challenge, which is really good defense the more guys surround us, so we're going to want to be surrounded. And we may have to start doing what I used to do with invincibility with my tanker, which is you get everybody around you and then you switch targets one at a time, cycle through the targets, and then come back, leaving them all partially up. It sounds counterintuitive because you figure, well, don't you really want to defeat one at a time and take the damage out? And if a scrapper or a stalker, you definitely want that. But if if you don't have, it's not scrapper or stalker actually, because they could have invulnerability. If you have a power that makes you better the more you're surrounded, you would possibly want to keep them close. And this guy just did dull pain, so that your character is better, missing over and over again with a 75% chance to hit. Your character gets better and better as the enemies surround you. Now, it's a little different with this power set because it's almost like the reverse of invincibility. Invincibility makes you harder to hit, but it also gives you bonus to hit, doesn't it? Yeah, it gives you defense rather than debuffing them, and it buffs you. I think it makes you able to hit more, so having more around you gives you a better to hit, which obviously is a good thing. So you have to sort of balance out having them around you, making your power better, with taking all of that damage from them. If they're surrounding you, they still could hit you, right, and do some damage. And so you have to kind of balance that out and figure out which, like sort of how quickly you want to take enemies down and that sort of thing. So it does take a little bit of thought, and there is our first +1 lieutenant. So this is where you definitely would want to bring the other guy in, if possible, and let him stand there while you're fighting the lieutenant, right? Because the lieutenant will have a more reduced chance to hit you if there's another guy standing there with you and the minion isn't really a threat, right? The minion is not going to really do much to us. It's really the lieutenant that we have to worry about. And you've now, I think, seen them do dull pain a couple times, so you can see what happens with that. So one trick with that is to reserve a big hit, if you can. Well, we missed him. A big hit for as you get them down low, and then try to take them all the way to 0, because if you take them all the way to 0, then they won't hit dull pain. What you really want them to do is to execute it as they're falling to unconscious, so that it's spent and doesn't actually do anything to them. Now this guy is the lieutenant we already fought, but he rezzed himself, so we had to fight him again. Right, so freak shows can be really hard on the endurance of characters, especially if you don't have something like quick recovery, just because you have to fight them and then fight them again. I think I calculated at one point it's about a 30% chance, about a 1 in 3, that they're going to res. And so one of the things I haven't been doing this mission, because I'm rusty at fighting freak shows, but one of the things I haven't been doing this mission is after you knock down your targets, right, you want to kind of stand there and wait, because they might get back up. And you just sort of count to 5. If they don't get up by the count, slowly, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If they don't get up within that time period, they're probably not going to. Also, the thing to keep in mind, the other reason freak shows kill your endurance is that they are doing a lot of electricity, and electricity's secondary effect is to drain endurance. Again, super annoying when enemies do it to you, almost useless against enemy foes. I've really never seen a case where draining endurance did anything to them. I had, I think it was Quintessence last, the character that I played. Why are these guys even level? Yeah, it's level 24 mission. I don't know why they're level 23. A Quintessence last, which is the first brute I played, and I got her to level 50. And she was a dark melee energy aura. So I was energy aura, I think, had a way of sapping endurance and giving it to you. And it never really made it so that the enemies couldn't attack me. They always had enough endurance. You drain half their endurance. They always had enough to do their attacks. And we've discussed that before, so I won't really belabor that any further. Is that a boss up there? Okay, so he's a red boss. We should be alright. Oh, this is the owner, that's what this means. PWN is own, and XXORZ is just or. So this is Tiponzers, as I like to call him, the owner. And this is a special mission. It's not a story arc mission. This is a mission that gets you a badge. So the way I like to do this when you know there's a boss in the area and he's going to be a tough boss is sweep the zone, sweep the room, make sure that you take care of everybody else so that they don't get involved in the boss fight if the boss starts running around and aggro to you. There's another guy over here. And I hear a glowy, but I'm not sure where it is. And I hear another one over here. So there are, what, 2 more? And this guy, this other guy's just completely ignored me. Whoops. Do a lot of whiffing for somebody with 75 to 95% chances to hit. 1 to go after this. And we see where it is, but let's go ahead and get the owner first. I think he is by himself now, so we're going to go ahead and buff up and just take him out. Oh, by the way, guys, we have the commuter badge. So we have now earned the sort of the final number of minutes staying logged off in the train station. No problem there. So this is our frequent commuter badge. Running flight and jumping speeds are increased slightly due to our benefits from our day job. Not bad. And now we're going to just grab the last weapon rack and take the weapons away from the freaks, and this should get us a badge. Yep, we got the Owns badge. And a Chief Swiper badge is for how many freaks, I guess, we defeated. And I think those can be used in the arena in some way. That's what the gladiator thing is. You can like use them as NPC helpers in the arena or something. I've never ever played in the arena other than just once. And so when it first came out, they fought my scrapper, not my martial arts scrapper, but my scrapper was supposed to be a villain, and just for the role play, they fought her against, I think it was the controller, or no, it was my scrapper against a brute, and man, it was close. It's claws regen against Dark. That's right. The one of the leaders, the leader of the villain group in my guild, and I was one of the leaders of the hero group, and we had a little fight. It was fun, and everybody else logged in to watch. They were all part of the battle, but nobody fought. It was just the two of us. I think we did best 2 out of 3 or something like that. All right, so Hand of Iron. So the Freakshows have broken into a warehouse full of electronic parts. Get over there right now. So we're going to be fighting them, and I think we're now on the Freakshow story arc. This is a pretty cool one, so I won't give any spoilers to it. We're going to go to Independence Port and see if we can stop them from stealing electronics. So I hope you guys are enjoying Liberty Lass. I'm really having fun playing her. We still have a lot of powers we need to get the character to have a full and complete attack chain. And ooh, no, I didn't mean to do that. I'm trying to get rid of this. Is a temporary power that you just get because of these are just temporary powers that you get from things that you missions that you ran or badges that you earned. What is this fast travel? Provides quick access to your personal group and group teleportation powers. I'm not sure what that's doing for me. Alright guys, let's go ahead and... Okay, so that we have to go to the other side. We're on the south side of Independence Port. We want to head to the north side. Yeah, so this power... This is an accolade. Provides access to your personal group and group teleportation powers. I'm not sure what that does for me. Let's try it and see. So you may have noticed this thing. This is a special fly speed boost, right? And so it can make you fly faster. This is something new to Homecoming. They did not have that on in live, and I have no interest in it. To me, I'm perfectly happy just using flight. So let's see what this fast travel thing does. Oh, we got it down there. All right, so let me just land. I honestly have no idea what it does. I don't recall it at all. Is this base teleporter? Ah, so we can, I see. So this allows us to pick from the various types of rapid teleport. And right now all we can do is Ouroboros. And I guess that's to help you so that you don't need as many items on the tray. Oh, and somebody else mentioned this. Let me point this out. He said that somewhere in the salvage there was a way to click on the vault, but I don't see it. Oh, here, Vault Reserve. And you can get to the vault that way. You don't even need to click on anything. And then, I don't know, I guess we'll drag a few things over here just to get them out of the way. And now we can get more salvage. Alright, so let's head on to the mission. Right, so again, that boost, you would do it like this. And then it makes you go faster, I guess. Doesn't feel all that much faster, honestly. A little bit. I feel like flight with a single origin enhancer on it is enough. And I really kind of wish they didn't have this thing here, or it was optional to turn it off. If there is any way to turn this off, this extra tray that pops in when you hit flight automatically like that, somebody please tell me how to get rid of it, because I would love to get rid of it. As anybody who's watched this channel for a while knows, I try to play this game as vanilla as I can. There are a few conveniences that I do prefer, but something like that is just, yeah, I'm not interested in using it. So, yeah, if there's any way to turn that off, let me know. The other thing I do want to point out, on the tray, right, you can use buttons, the number keys, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., to run your powers. And if you hit, I think it is Control, you can, Control 1 will be this thing, and Alt is this one. Right, so if I hit Alt 1, I'm hovering now, right? A lot of people like to use the button, like click the keyboard. I hate it, and I always click the buttons with the mouse. So it's really up to you what you want to do. Back in live, there actually were people who said if you use clicking with the mouse instead of the keyboard, we'll kick you from the group if we find out, because they thought it was inferior and that you couldn't be fast enough. This is self-evidently, obviously not the case, since I can click before the powers recharge, so you can't go any faster than I'm clicking, right? It's not possible for the character to actually act any faster than the way I'm having it act, right? Because one power has been triggered before the next one is finished animating, right? The other thing I do want to mention is if you don't want, so the ways to target enemies, there are 3. I haven't actually gone over this. One is to hover your mouse cursor over them and click on them, as I'm doing there. So that's one way. The second way, you can escape to detarget. The second way is to hit tab, tab, tab. That's what I usually do. Control tab hits the nearest, right? Tab will just hit the next after that, right? So I often do Control tab to hit the nearest guy. But the other thing you can do is you can click an attack button, and the first time you click it, if you have nothing targeted, it will target an enemy. And I think nearest. So those are 3 ways you can target enemies. Right, one of the things, in fact, that I do, for instance, if I'm fighting enemies and I get them down low, well, it's too late now, but let's say I had that guy into a sliver, and then I animate an AoE, I will, as it's animating, Control Tab, and it will target the next nearest enemy, so that as soon as Whirling Hands, or whatever the melee AoE is done animating, I can attack the next guy with the next attack. So I don't use the keypads to the keyboard to execute my powers, but I do use it to target, and I do use it to detarget with the escape key. Another thing I want to point out is I'm perfectly willing to use AoEs against single targets. It is inefficient. The AoE does use more endurance per damage than a single target attack will do, because the assumption is that it will attack multiple targets. And a number of AoEs are also, they have a lower chance to hit. Again, with the idea that although you're hitting individually less often when you're doing an AoE, if there's 5 or 6 targets, a 50% chance to hit is still going to hit 2 or 3 targets, right? And so that's kind of the logic behind it. But I will indiscriminately hit AoEs against single targets. If it's up, I'll use it unless something else is up, right? And sometimes, depending on the melee attack, the AoE, like Dragon's Tail, which is a knockdown, I use that against single targets all the time with my martial arts scrapper, because the point of it wasn't to do AoE at that point, it was to knock them down. Now, because energy melee has a dizzy, a stun, mez, whatever you want to call it, with almost all of its attacks, it has like a little bit of a disorient, right? All of them have disorient. This one does too, I think, right? Yeah, they all have a disorient or a stun. You don't need the AoE to do the mez. But if you remember that mezes have a certain magnitude, this is magnitude 2, and they last for a certain duration, and if while one mez is up you do a second one, the durations stack, right? Then the AoE mez will stack with the other powers. And so if you can execute all 4 of these, say, in the same 4 seconds, and they all last a little more than 4 seconds, this is 2, 4, 6, 8 magnitude. That'll stun anything but an elite boss, I think. Right, because I believe the bosses have something on the order of a 6 mag defense. I think elite bosses have 9 and archvillains have 12 or something like that, or maybe even more than 12. Archvillains have a lot because the assumption is that they will be fighting multiple characters, including multiple characters that have mez. Also, I want to point out that mezes have separate types, and a disorient mez is not going to stack with a hold mez. It doesn't work that way, right? We have hold protection, and there are separate numbers for disorient protection, knockdown protection, and so on. So just because you knocked somebody down doesn't mean they're going to be easier to hold. You have to beat the enemy's specific mez defense, just like with smashing damage, you have to beat their smashing defense, right? Doesn't matter if you've reduced their lethal defense and you're using smashing. And this guy came in because I was careless and I let him res without waiting. So what happens to me usually is I know the Freakshow res, they raise, they get back up, and I start out watching for it, and then if enough spawns go by without them doing it, I forget. So let's wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So one thing you can see that I'm doing here, and this is something I would do with any scrapper or brute, especially stalkers, right? A stalker, you'd come in here hidden and just one-shot this guy. With any scrapper, brute, stalker, or tanker, with any melee character, and also with my mastermind, I used to do this. I'd always target the lieutenant in a spawn like this and ignore the minion. And the main reason is that the minions do not have enough... well, I actually didn't do that with my stalker, or scrapper. But with the stalker, with the mastermind, and with the brute, because you have such good defenses, and a tanker especially, I target the lieutenant, and I work the lieutenant down, and I don't worry about the minions. With a scrapper, I used to actually start with the weakest guy and work my way up. And that was because the defenses aren't quite strong enough on a scrapper. They're a little weaker than a brute's, and especially with super reflexes, it could be very, what's the word? It could be very swingy. I would try to take the lowest guy down and then work my way up so that when I was fighting the boss, I didn't have other people picking at me, right? Death by 1,000 cuts. But with a brute, and with something like Rise of the Challenger, Invincibility, with an invulnerability tanker or brute, with that kind of thing, you want to start with the lieutenant so that you're surrounded by the weak guys who can't do as much to you. With a stalker, you want to take the biggest guy and you want to assassin strike him, because that will do the most damage and will take him right out. Right? You can one-shot a lieutenant. You can take a boss down to like a quarter of his hit points and then just finish him off really quickly, and the minions then don't really have time to pick at you. So it really depends like who I'm playing. I'm just automatically going for the bigger guys with this brute, but with my Martial Arts Super Reflex Scrapper, I guarantee you, if I just started playing her, I would immediately go for the weakest guys first because it's just how I always did it, and it works really well, at least for me. I hear a glowy over here somewhere. There it is. And I hear another one too. Now, it's interesting with the different spawns. With some enemies, it's very common to have 3 minions in a spawn, but an alternate configuration is 1 minion and 1 lieutenant. And for some reason, the Freakshows seem to do that a lot more than 3 minions. And we've now hit level 24, so the rest of this mission will be fairly easy. But we need to defeat the electronics thief, which is the boss, and his crew. So usually the wording on this is very important. Defeating a thief and his crew, or a boss and his crew, is usually just the boss and whatever minions are immediately adjacent to him. If it's in like a particular room, you might have to take the whole room out. If it's in a hallway, it might just be the guys in that hallway. And once the boss and his immediately adjacent minions are defeated, then if there are other guys in the base, it often doesn't matter because you're just got to take out the boss and his crew. Now this is actually a modification of how the game was launched, because in the launch version of City of Heroes, a lot of these missions just said take out the chief. And the reason they were like that is that there really wasn't any way that you could just take out the chief without taking out most of the guys around him and aggroing them, and without taking out most of the other guys in the base. And the other thing you have to remember is when City of Heroes launched, there was no little mission exit button. You would go all the way into the base, defeat the enemies, and then you'd have to walk out. So if you didn't fight guys on the way in, you were going to have to fight them on the way out. But very early on, due to a number of us on the forums, and I was one of the people on that thread, actually, I remember doing it, early on we said, look, it's boring to just go through an empty map after we've defeated everybody, and we're all the way at the, 5 floors into an office, every floor's been cleared, and now we have to take the elevators all the way down 5 different levels and go through them and everything when there's nobody else around. Isn't there some way that you can let us just leave the mission? And so they had the mission exit button, and that was added later after, I don't know, issue 1 or something. So the consequence of that, however, is that if you just had to defeat the boss, as soon as the boss was defeated, the mission button would pop up and you could immediately click it, right? Now that wasn't much of a danger still in City of Heroes, because although some players had stealth, it wasn't a perfect hide, and it would vanish as soon as you started combat and that sort of thing. So it was not easy to get through a mission without aggroing half the mission and then just fight the boss. But when City of Villains came out, right, there was a stalker, and they have a near perfect hide. I think there are a few enemies that can see through it, and I don't think I ever tested this, but I also think if they're really, really above your level, they might see through it, like 10 levels above you. But it's a near perfect hide, in literal invisibility rather than stealth. And scrappers were coming into big missions that were meant to be long and involved. And that's scrapper stalkers. They were going in hidden. They were stealthing to the end of the mission. And then because they had that assassin strike, which nobody else had, they would bring a bunch of reds in with them. They would have the equivalent of a focused chi or whatever. They would hit that. They would down, a whole tray of reds to increase their damage, and then they would assassin strike the boss, one shot kill him, and then hit mission exit and walk out, right? And so the developers said, all right, we don't want that happening. So what they did was they said, you got to defeat the boss and at least the other guys in the room with him, forcing the stalkers to stay there and fight rather than just going in, one-shotting, and coming out. That's actually where a lot of the escort missions came from. Stalkers in escort missions, the enemies and ambushes, right? Those things, the enemies know where you are, whether you're hidden or not, so hide doesn't help you. So they did a bunch of things to sort of like, if you want to use hide to just go through your spawns and attack them, you're fine as a stalker. But if you're going to try to use it as an exploit, they're going to try to make that harder to do. And so, yeah, I never really liked the fact that the ambushes know exactly where you are. I feel like that's super out of character. Was this the boss? Like, who's the boss? I don't know. We'll go through here and finish this, I guess. But yeah, I don't mind them trying to prevent exploits, and I understand why they did what they did. However, I do not like things that are wildly out of character. It's wildly out of character for the stalker to just stalk to the end of a mission, defeat the boss, and walk out. But it's also wildly out of character for some enemies who were outside the warehouse to come into the warehouse, right, like over here, and be able to beeline right to my character and know exactly where I am. And they're just freak shows. Why? Freak shows don't have any superhuman detection abilities. And so that always annoyed me because it's just very out of character, and it's incredibly it's a huge contrivance. By the way, what you saw just there is he hit Dulpain and I knocked him out before it executed. So he now can't use it if he reses. So yeah, in the old days, having completed the mission, I would have had to turn flight on and fly out. So lots of things have changed in City of Heroes over the years, many for the better, some for the worse. And a lot of them are neutral. You know, oh, it's just a different way. It's just different now. I think there were a lot of quality of life changes over the years that dramatically helped. For example, adding all these different trays that you can do, right? And the different configurations of the trays and everything. I don't... Whoops. What are we doing? Close this tray. I don't actually... I did it again, didn't I? I removed a power by accident. I don't actually use some of the quality of life changes, but I like a lot of them, and a lot of them have made the game more enjoyable to play, right? And that's kind of been a boon to those of us who enjoy City of Heroes. They generally made it better every time they changed it. So let's give a call to, was this Claire? You completed the task. So I think this is enough for tonight, guys. We're going to stop here. I hope you have enjoyed. Until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes.